Yo, what's good, everybody? Back with another Brian Speaks On today. And this one I want to get into the subject of epigenetics and how certain things get passed down from generation to generation. And I'm going to use a specific example, which is a kind of a very comedic example, in my opinion, to speak on the bigger point. Epigenetics is a theoretical science right now, which is basically based on memories being passed down genetically. And of course, when you get into that kind of scientific territory, as a black person, it gives us more validity in our argument about the psychological effects of chattel slavery and how we still live the effects of slavery and institutional racism as it applied way back when. Now, of course, everything was subject to conjecture before, and it still is. I mean, it's still a theoretical science. But more and more evidence is starting to grow in the direction of being more of a preponderance of evidence to validate this theory. Now, usually the perspective is mainly from a black person regarding the whole argument about slavery and the dysfunction that it's created within our culture based on that. But I want to talk about the other side of epigenetics, and that is the other side being the paranoia of white people about black people that gets passed down inherently through genetics. Now, one of the main examples I want to use right now is a hilarious thing that just happened. Now, recently, a few days ago, they introduced the new and last trailer to the latest Star Wars movie coming out. And there was this, I guess, wannabe movement on the internet through a certain demographic of people who were ranting and raving about how Star Wars is representing the new white genocide, and how there's this huge outrage about interracial breeding in Star Wars, and how they're trying to kill off the white race based on a fictional movie, a fictional sci-fi movie at that. But it, to me, is a microcosm of a representation of the paranoia that white people feel towards black people, and not so much just towards black people. Don't get me wrong, it goes more than just them being fixated on us so much as the paranoia of the end of white supremacy. That's the big overall picture. But it starts with the interracial breeding. And of course, the main polar opposite of white is with the black. So they're fixated more on us more than anybody because they've always been fixated on us. History shows that. And again, that goes to my point of the epigenetics theory of the paranoia and the obsession from whites towards blacks. You know, you look at anything that deals with black issue, and you get two responses mainly. You get the racist response from the racist the racist quotient of white people, and you get the response from the liberated white people, the liberal whites, the ones that are supposed to be, post-racial, but they still exhibit racist tendencies even though they don't realize it, and when enlightened upon it, still refuse to accept it and become dissonant towards it. And one of the main issues, or examples I should say, towards that is when black people started the Black Lives Matter movement, and the response from most white liberals was, well, all lives matter. Well, again, this brings upon this whole thing about white people not being, they're not falling back to something that doesn't involve them. They have to be included in everything. So it's like, oh, it's not only just black lives that matter, our lives matter too. In a society where your lives have always been deemed as superior to everyone else's, but your life still mattered too. I mean, I think the whole systematic setup kind of substantiates that. You know, that's been the barometer of a life mattering. Y'all, the system dictates that you are actually the standard of a life matter before anyone else is actually. And again, we could go into that whole secondary argument, you know, but I'm really sticking more to the epigenetics. And like I said, there's an epigenetic situation with black people where, if you listen to scholars, black scholars, most recently I've listened to a YouTube interview with Dr. Joy Degree, who wrote Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, which is a life-changing book. I strongly recommend you reading it. And it also talks about this particular subject of the dysfunction of what happened back then still resonating in a residual effect within black people now, within our culture, and it shows towards how we act towards each other. But again, there's the other side to that coin is the inherent paranoia and obsession that white people inherit towards their constant fixation and fear of losing white supremacy, losing their advantage, losing their grip. And in a society where now, yes, you are now becoming the minority. It's just a matter of math and biology. When they're of the understanding, and they'll be the first ones to tell you, more so probably than black people, that when you mix a white race with pretty much any other culture that is non-white, they are no longer deemed to be just white. They're deemed to be whatever the other culture is or the other race is, especially as it applies to black people. Now, with that being said, and with the numbers increasing, and with the enlightenment that is the internet, thankfully, with us having the ability to learn the real truth about our history and learn the real truth about who we are in terms of culturally being related and of the same general racial background. You know, now you have Latinos understanding that they are black, you know, by historical origin. So now there's becoming this movement of understanding that, hey, we're all part of the same collective. So our numbers now have increased even more so, because we're no longer really we're slowly augmenting each other into the same collective now. So now you bring those numbers in with our numbers and you add those numbers together, and there you go. So with that comes this fear of white genocide. You know, oh my God, the white race is going to be watered down until it is no more, which is funny because I've always heard that fear within black culture about blacks, you know, trying to be watered down and taken out through interracial breeding. So it's actually a little bit humorous to hear it from the other side. But it's comical when they apply that paranoia to the degree of using that paranoia for a Star Wars movie, and using that as saying, this is a representation, this is our proof that they are trying to get rid of us all. Even J.J. Abrams, who's the director of Star Wars, oh, he's anti-white. J.J. Abrams is white, you know. So it's funny, it's comical, especially when you start looking at certain aspects. I mean, the very creator of Star Wars, George Lucas, has been happily married to a black woman for God knows how long, you know. So he was already kind of down with the whole understanding of interracial relations, you know. The whole James Earl Jones joke is obvious right there in itself as well. You know, I mean, God, Lord, I mean, I wonder what would have been back in the days, like in 1975, when the first Star Wars came out, or I should say, Empire Strikes Back more so, because that's when Lando Calrissian was introduced into the mix. I wonder if the internet was out back then, what would have been like the commentary from people like that about Lando Calrissian. Oh my God, Mandingos he's in Star Wars. He's gonna breed with Leia, and he's gonna steal Leia from Han Solo, and then you're gonna have all these mixed kids, blah blah blah. It probably would have been hilarious because it was way less politically correct back then. People were really speaking their minds and being just straight up blatant with this. So you could only imagine what the commentary would have been back then. I almost wish that there was an alternate reality that existed to where we could actually see what would have what it would have been. But I digress. But anyway, I'm gonna look more into the epigenetics theory, science, and keep up with it. I just read an article and posted it on my wall, on my Facebook wall a few days ago, where scientists were really discussing the whole aspect of it becoming slowly less theoretical and more tangible. So understand, this goes deeper than just people feeling a certain way. This goes way back, and this is history showing itself cyclically, and sometimes it comes out in humorous racist fails, epic fails, like what we saw with the Star Wars situation. But still, there's still a lesson to be learned here, is that these things get passed down more complicated than just dad saying things out loud and the kids sponging off of it. It's true. It's what they say. It's what's in your heart. And if that's who you are if that's what you are at heart, that's going to get passed down. And that's why we still see what we see out here. And we're not the post-racial society that we like to boast about to the rest of the world, which the rest of the world could already see right through that veil anyway, and they see the BS about it. But anyway, just wanted to raise that topic. And you know me, I like to provoke certain things. But you let me know what you think about the whole subject, what you think about the Star Wars boycott, so-called boycott. What do you think about epigenetics as a science? What do you think about the theory of it? Holla at me as I holla at you, and let's build. Let's talk. Let's have dialogue. Let's exchange thoughts, ideas, theories, all that. All right. And with that, I wish y'all all a blessed one. Later.